Well, this year, Michael Rosen is our guest director, and it's been wonderful to work with him. He's a polymath, really, a fantastic entertainer, incredibly funny. His books are known and loved by many around the country and around the world. But what's been extraordinary is working with him on all parts of the programme and looking at areas that you wouldn't expect someone like Michael Rosen to be knowledgeable about or even interested in. His mind has darted across this programme, and we've been responding to his inspiration and his direction in all sorts of ways. So this year with Michael in particular, we've been even more explicit than we have been before on constructing themes around particular areas. So there are 3 particular themes in this year's festival. One is based on his favourite novel, which is Emil and the Detectives, the Erich Kästner novel from the 1920s in Germany. And from that, we've really looked at the inspiration of artists and intellectuals in Berlin in the 20s and 30s and their legacy throughout the last century. We've also an area of the festival which we're calling Vergiss mein nicht, Forget Me Not, again reflecting on the Germanic theme of some of the festival, but concentrating on an area of loss and disappearance, of lives lived and lives lost, and the traces that they leave. And then a third area is really around language. We're calling it sense and nonsense, but stories, lies and rhetoric. It really infuses all sorts of areas of the debate programme and the literature strand, but also some of the theatre as well. And so setting those 3 themes with Michael has been one of the great joys for our programmers to respond to and for me to think about. And then Michael has really looked at all sorts of other areas of dance, music, and theatre, and given us particular things to think about. So you'll see lots of his own personal appearances in the festival, but lots of his influence too.
It's great having Michael Rosen as the guest artistic director because, of course, he's done so much work with children, with families, with schools over the years, and he's so well known that it's given us a great launching off point for our programme. And it's just exciting to have somebody whose primary work over the years has been with children. The festival historically starts with the children's parade, and each year the theme is one of the most exciting things for those of us who have to think of it. And of course with Michael there were so many possible themes, you know, to consider, and in the end we decided that what Michael fundamentally uses is the alphabet, and that is a fabulous theme for the schools. So we've got 83 schools and community organisations in this year's Brighton Festival opening parade, and there will be about 5,000 of them, and they've carved the alphabet up between themselves. So you'll get, so for example, I know there's 2 schools doing J, and they're doing jokers and jesters, so they'll go quite nicely together. And a couple of schools doing P are doing pirates. One's doing pirates and one's doing pacifists. Michael Rosen's favourite children's book is Emil and the Detectives, and he's recommended it to schools and children all over Brighton and Hove. And as part of the Young City Reads project, loads and loads of people are going to be reading it. Glyndebourne are bringing a completely new opera for young people. It's called Captain Blood's Revenge, and you're allowed to dress up as a pirate and come along to the show. We're going to have a post-performance pirate parade for that one, but it's an hour of swashbuckling in the Old Market Arts Centre, and it'll be the first time it's ever been seen. We've booked Flathampton, which is an incredible piece, a real festival show for children, and that's in the Corn Exchange. And basically when you go in, without giving too much away, the world is completely flat. I mean, you're standing on your entire world. Our major European entry this year for young people is a show called Piccablo, which is by an Italian company, and it's actually about the life of Picasso and really about his paintings. And it's an extraordinary, fast-moving, really energetic, sort of circus-style piece. But I can honestly tell you that at the end of it, I sort of got Picasso in a way that I never had before. And we've got a bicycle-based show, which takes the form of around about 3-mile cycle across the South Downs. You turn up there with your bicycle, And it's the story of Don Quixote, and Don Quixote's got quite a big bicycle, and Sancho Panza has got a sort of donkey-type bicycle, and you all go on this adventure, presumably involving windmills, across the South Downs.
Going into the festival this year, the focus was very much on new and unique experiences for the audience, so in a sense moving away from touring work and focusing more on commissions and UK and world premieres. When we sat down with Michael, he spoke a lot about 1920s and 30s Germany and how the influence that's had on the arts. So from a music perspective, obviously that's quite an exciting scene that came out of Germany around then, the very theatrical cabaret scene. In direct response to that, we've got an event called Music Cabaret, which is very much celebrating that and the influences that have come out from that. It's a very, very active programme this year, extremely eclectic. So, you know, it ranges from events which are really pushing the boundaries in their use of technology, going to very legendary artists such as the American country singer Lucinda Williams, also Sinead O'Connor. There's a fantastic installation called Felix's Machines in the Brighton University Gallery. And then there's a very mixed world and jazz programme. We have Zoe Rahman, the jazz pianist, Marius Nesset, Tomorrow's Warriors, Joy Utzner, the Indian classical violinist. There's Flaming Lips in the concert hall, which can certainly assure us of being a very flamboyant, lively, high-energy concert in there. There's several premieres this year. There is the Tiger Lilies, The Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, which is in the concert hall, an utterly beautiful, stunning audio-visual show. I don't want to give too much away, but I've never ever seen projection used in this way before. Absolutely beautiful. That's a UK premiere. Earfilms is an audio cinema experience, so it utilises the traditional art of storytelling together with all that sound technology can really offer us at the moment. So the visual element is non-existent, so you sit in a dark space, the audience are given blindfolds and they sit within a structure which is essentially about 20 or so ambisonic speakers being very, very multi-directional, so that you're essentially sitting in quite an epic soundscape. And what I really like about this, I mean, it's moving into a new form of media, if you like. So as the participant, you're forced to really participate, as in that feature film relies on your imagination and the role that you play within it.
Michael Rosen, obviously, as people know, is very inspirational for young children. So this year we have commissioned a work from Michael with James Morgan and Juliet Pochin, young composers, who together have devised a piece called The Great Enormo. And The Great Enormo is a theme park, and it's a time-travelling theme park. It's an interactive guide to the orchestra, really, this piece, and it takes everybody on a whirlwind historical tour through the musical years, and it starts right back in medieval times and comes through to the jazz age. So you really will get the full history of music. The Lunchtime series is one of the little gems of the festival, I think. It's been going for about 20 years. We started it as a means of giving a platform to young artists who really find it quite hard in their first early years in the music business of getting going and getting their first recitals. Since then, it's really developed into a very important part of the classical programme. There's lots of those artists, young artists, who arrived in those first early years who are now really pretty senior in the music business and are international names. So it's been a fantastic platform for them to get their first concerts. There are two other particularly important concerts in the Lunchtime series that are relating directly to Michael Rosen's themes and his inspirations. When we met with him, we were talking about his thoughts around Terezin and Theresienstadt, which is the concentration camp that, just outside Prague. But out of this particular camp came the most amazing art. And in particular, there were a lot of composers working there. People like Victor Ullmann, Pavel Haas, Gideon Klein. And they were also playing the music of their own native country. So there's a lot of Dvorak, Smetana, Janacek, Suk. So throughout the festival, you'll see these composers appearing. In the lunchtime series, the Cavalieri Quartet will play Janacek's Intimate Letters as part of their programme. And the Bush Ensemble, who are one of our young players, young ensembles, will play Suk's Elegy, and their concert's on the 8th of May. And that's a particularly poignant day because it was the 8th of May 1945 that the Russians liberated Terezin concentration camp. So we're kind of building up a focus. The most exciting concert for me will be the closing concert, which is the Brighton Sinfonia, who often perform with no conductor, which is pretty unusual and a real skill. They watch their leader, they listen to each other in a particular way. It's a very unusual thing, but it does give real excitement to the music. And they're going to give us the European premiere of a work by Tariq O'Regan. Tariq O'Regan came a few years ago and we had another premiere of his which was fantastically well received. It was a brilliant piece. So this piece called Chabi promises to be just as exciting. It's teamed with the Mozart Oboe Concerto with the soloist Nicholas Daniel, who will also be directing the orchestra himself. And in the second half, we're very lucky to have the fantastic conductor Thierry Fischer, who is going to conduct our own Brighton Festival chorus in a performance of Mozart's C minor Mass.
For me, there are some really special highlights. Britain's The Canticles is one on Thursday the 9th of May in the Theatre Royal. This is a fantastic new production and a collaboration with Aldborough Music. Neil Bartlett and Paulie Constable, two Brighton-based artists, are coming together and responding to the Theatre Royal, one of their favourite spaces in all the world, using 5 works of Benjamin Britten that are very well loved by audiences. The Canticles span Britten's career from the 40s to the 70s. And this work will bring artists of choreographers and visual artists together with Neil and Paulie and some of the finest musicians, Ian Bostridge, Richard Watkins, Julius Drake, Yeston Davies, to explore these works, which are so well known, in a completely new and different way. We're of course really thrilled about the new work that we're bringing to the festival this year, but I'm also really pleased to showcase work that has thrilled audiences across the country in previous years. One work in particular is How Like an Angel, which is a collaboration between Circa, the circus group, and Ifadjilini, the choral group, and was part of the London 2012 Festival and Cultural Olympiad last year. It thrilled audiences in cathedrals around the country. We don't have a cathedral in Brighton and Hove, but we do have All Saints in Hove, which is a magnificent church and extraordinary architecture for this piece to be played out in. For anyone that really loved Janet Cardiff's installation at Fabrica 2 years ago, and the fantastic choral work Talus's Speminalium, the 40-part motet that was performed alongside it, this is a piece for you. It's a magnificent, meditative and breathtaking experience. The audience promenade around the space whilst the most extraordinary acrobatic work goes on at height, and the work of Josquin, Victoria and Hildegard von Bingen is performed by Ifadjilini. They're some of the best singers around. You have to come.
I think our mix of UK-based work and international work is a really great balance, actually. I think we're looking outward, as Brightonians like to do, and we're also welcoming work that has been celebrated elsewhere and bringing it to Brighton audience. So it's that fine balance. We focus quite a lot on themes of loss and disappearance in the theatre programme, which Michael has written quite a lot about. And we have 3 or 4 shows that respond to that in particular. One of those is called the Disappearances Project, which is an Australian company. a European premiere of a very simple show about people who go missing and how the families who are left behind cope with that. We also have a show called Fixing Point by Blast Theory, which is a Brighton-based company, very well-known company, and they're producing that out in Stanmore House. And then Lola Arias, which is an Argentinian company, they're presenting a show in Spanish called My Life After, which is about Argentinian teenagers in the 70s and 80s looking at what their parents had lost due to the political situation around them. So that would be a very strong way that we're engaging with Michael. There's also a couple of other ways in terms of storytelling, which obviously Michael's really interested in. We have a great show called Beowulf, based on the old English poem of Beowulf, but it's very bawdy and cabaret style almost, which is in the Spiegel Garden, Spiegel tent. So we're really excited about that one. There's going to be a lot of highlights in the programme in terms of theatre. One that I'm lucky to be working on is a piece that we have commissioned ourselves for the festival, which is a unique new world premiere piece by a British artist called Peter Reeder, and the performance is called The Contents of a House, and it's playing at a very beautiful house in Brighton in Preston Manor. Peter is spending a number of months exploring and researching the house and the objects and the history and memories of the house, and putting a show together around that for a very intimate audience. In the theatre programme, we have looked quite a lot at cross-art form work. So in terms of theatre, a lot of the work is moving to music, and actually it's been quite difficult at times to say, is that a music piece or is that a theatre piece? And that's very exciting to me, because the boundaries are blurred, and it means that we will hopefully lure people from the music world and also from the theatre world to co-pollinate, and that in itself is really interesting. So I think that's something that will certainly pull in quite a lot of younger audiences. Shows like We're Gonna Die, Big Mouth, Beowulf as well in the Spiegel tent. All of those are very young and fresh and energetic pieces.
We're known as a festival that has something for everyone. We set out to bring the best work that we can find, both internationally and from the UK. We feel that we've done that. We've responded to Michael's ideas, and we've been inspired by him. I think that all of the producers have responded in a variety of different ways, and we think that the audience is going to be as inspired as we are. This year, we have included some comedy in the programme. This hasn't happened in the past, but it kind of makes sense to be able to respond to Michael's sense of fun by having some comedians as part of the programme. We've got Beardy Man. He is creating an album in an hour with the audience in the Corn Exchange, and over in the Theatre Royal we'll be presenting Daniel Kitson's new show. He wasn't completely sure what that was going to be about just a few hours ago, but as it says in the brochure, he's got his idea now and he's sure that it's going to be a good one. So I'm really looking forward to that too. We are really pleased to be able to present Cirque Elwaz and their new piece, which is called Circopolis. This will be a UK premiere. It's a large ensemble piece, a really exciting set, lots of projection, lots of people on stage and amazing music. Part of the design is in response to Fritz Lang's film Metropolis. It's one of those pieces that was such a find because it responds so well to some of the themes that Michael was talking to us about. We will be presenting a new company called Cassus. This company is only a few months old. They are going to be bringing their new work called Knee Deep to the Theatre Royal. It's a company of 4. 3 of the members of the company have worked with Circa in the past. I've seen the piece. It's really amazing. I'm really excited that the company are coming, and it's really great to be presenting these young artists who are really pushing the boundaries of circus. Also, a world premiere, I guess, of Zero by Claude Ensemble. We've been part of commissioning this piece of work. They'll present the piece for the first time to an audience with us in the Corn Exchange, and then this piece will go on to Sadler's Wells and hopefully have, a long life beyond that as well. That's another large piece of dance filling the Corn Exchange, really, with 8 live musicians, and it's something we're really excited to present.
My role is 26 Letters Programmer, which means I programme the children's book events, which is events all around children's literature for young audiences and for grown-ups about children's books. Because Michael Rosen is the guest director, that's made the goals quite easy. I've wanted to make the most of him being part of the festival, so he's actually doing 4 events in 26 letters, 5 I think if you count Young City Reads as well. Michael Rosen is doing 2 events on the first Sunday, one for very, very tiny children and one for slightly larger children, over 6. Bear Hunts and Chocolate Cake is the first theme, and I think most people will know what that is. And then he'll be reading poems and telling stories for the older kids. And he's also doing what I think is going to be a very exciting event for grown-ups. He'll be talking to Judith Kerr, who wrote the Mog books and The Tiger Who Came to Tea. She's 90 this year, so it's a special year for her. And she also wrote When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit, which was about slightly autobiographical about when she left Nazi Germany as a child. So that links in with the theme of Emil and the Detectives, which runs through the whole festival. So that's quite an interesting one. He's also doing an event about how to write funny books for kids. So that's also for grown-ups. So there's a mixture of audiences for Michael's events in 26 letters. I'm looking forward to a couple of the picture book events, especially. We've got one with award-winning illustrator Chris Horton, who does fantastic, vibrant picture books. I think his latest is called Oh No, George, that I think a lot of people will recognise maybe from the window of bookshops as they go past. Children love his books and grown-ups too. And from America, we've got John Klassen coming over, who specialises in picture books about animals and their hats. His latest is one called This Is Not My Hat, about a fish who's stolen the hat of a much larger fish. And it ends possibly quite badly for the little fish, but that's open to interpretation.
The literary programme starts with an event called Fanny and Stella, which is an author called Neil McKenna, who has written a book called Fanny and Stella, who I'm sure you know were a pair of cross-dressing Victorian prostitutes who were the toast of London. I think it's a really wonderful way to start the festival, start the literary programme in the festival, because it's playful, it's subversive, but it's also casting a light back on society. And I think it's going to be a really fun way to kick things off. So in December I went to Michael's house and spent an afternoon with him, drinking coffee at his kitchen table. We talked about the festival. I asked him what he wanted to talk about, and he said, well, I'd like to talk about education, because that's a subject matter very dear to his heart. So we're doing a Guardian debate called Progress or Disaster, which is looking at the government's education policy. Melissa Ben's on the panel. There's a educationist from Cambridge University, Robin Alexander, who's also talking, and Polly Toynbee's chairing that. And Michael also said that he was interested in talking about urban redevelopment. So there's a film he's scripted called Under the Cranes that we're showing, and Michael's going to be part of the panel afterwards, along with the director of the film, Emma Louise Williams, and the writer Rowan Moore, who has written a fantastic book called Why We Build. We've also got some new voices at the festival, so we've got some, and I think that's one of the things I'm keen on doing, is ensuring that we have that as a thread that runs through the festival in years to come. So we have got a woman called Polly Morland, whose first book is called The Society for Timid Souls, which is a wonderful non-fiction book that looks at ideas of bravery, how we look at bravery in society and what constitutes a brave person. So she's gone and interviewed firefighters and policemen and soldiers. And I think that's a really fascinating book. I think it's going to be a really great session at the festival. If I was going to pick one show that I think will be a really interesting discussion, it is Alan Rusbridger and Richard Sennett. Alan is the editor of The Guardian, and Richard is a very highly regarded sociologist, and they are going to be talking about the role of the amateur in society. Alan's written a book about a year spent trying to learn a very complicated piece of Chopin, and Richard and Alan's discussion, which is about how we spend our free time, what we can achieve within that domain, I think is going to be really fascinating. Two events that are kind of related, which are to do with visual images. Firstly, Simon Garfield, who is going to be talking about On the Map, which is a book he's written about cartography and the role that maps have played in shaping the world, not just in reflecting it. We also have a panel event discussing what makes a graphic novel, and the graphic novel as a literary form is something that's really coming into its own at the moment. And we're very lucky that we have one of the best graphic novel publishers here in Brighton, Myriad. So we're putting on an event with them I'm very excited about.
This year for us on the film programme side, there's two main areas that connect with Michael Rosen's interests. One is 1930s Berlin, and the other is a couple of screenings that relate to Emile and the Detectives, one of Michael's favourite books. We've got a screening of a 1935 British version of Emile and the Detectives, so made just 4 years after the original film. It was missing, sort of believed lost for many years, but was quite recently rediscovered and has been restored also by the BFI. And the action in that is transposed from Berlin to London, and it's an English language film. And we're also screening Hue and Cry, which was the very first Ealing comedy made in London in 1947, and that's very influenced by Emile and the Detectives, and is about a group of streetwise London children who sort of work together to crack a criminal gang. We're delighted to be able to present a very rare screening of all 15.5 hours of Berlin Alexanderplatz. It's made by Rainer Werner Fassbinder for German television in 1980, and it's based on the classic novel of the same name and was adapted by Fassbinder. Obviously it's rarely seen in cinemas, partly because of its length, 15.5 hours. And it's interesting showing it now, I think, because British audiences have kind of got used to foreign language television, perhaps through things like Borgen and The Killing on BBC4 on a Saturday evening. So it feels a very interesting time for that reason, and many others, to represent the film and to screen it again. It was remastered and restored a few years ago, so this is the first screening since that restoration. Well, we're also delighted to be able to screen People on Sunday, which was a very influential 1930 documentary which launched the careers of Billy Wilder and Fred Zinnemann and a number of others. It's a beautiful, beautiful documentary, or semi-documentary, and we're presenting it with a live score from Neil Brand, who's recognised as one of the leading silent film accompanists. So he's providing a live piano score.
This year we're working again with House and artist open houses. And House's lead artist is Marila Neudecker, a wonderful visual artist who is creating 2 exhibitions in the festival. We've co-commissioned a piece in the Regency Townhouse, and that really looks at Marila's concern with the natural world and the North and South Poles, and is a fantastic experience in Regency Townhouse, right across the levels of the townhouse. And also a new exhibition at Lighthouse, looking at some of her work that concerns particularly military installations, and refers back to the theme of disappearance and loss. The third exhibition that we're collaborating with Fabrica this time on is as a very special Finnish artist, Karina Kaikkonen, and her work uses materials from everyday life. In this particular instance, shirts, jackets, clothing that will be both in Fabrica in a very special installation and an outdoor location. And some of her work outdoors is completely magical and really nostalgic and quite melancholic as well. Really important to Brighton Festival each year are our outdoor events. There are 22 free events across the festival this year and some magnificent outdoor experiences. Complex Carphaneum bring Figa Libra, which is a promenade piece across the city. We've also Oxford Contemporary Music bringing audible machines, and Bad Company with Faust. There are a whole range of outdoor works, in fact, in collaboration with Without Walls, a really important partnership for us. And we know that audiences really love these experiences, which explore all sorts of different parts of the city and play out across our extraordinary city.
Well, what makes Brighton Festival different from festivals elsewhere is that, I mean, it seems a bit obvious, but it is in Brighton. And, you know, Brighton is the best place to live and work, and I think it must be one of the best places to visit in the UK. And then you've got added festival, so it's like the icing on the top of what is a wonderful place to visit anyway.
I think because Brighton is a very participatory city, I think people here love to join in. They're very up for anything site-specific, anything strange. You can put things in the brochure where it says venue to be disclosed at time of booking. People will go for it, and I think that's a very special thing about Brighton, that the audiences are up for it. We've got things like Young City Reads for the first time, with Collected Works running a collected read for young people for the first time, for primary school kids. They're all going to be reading Emil and the Detectives. The participation starts even before the festival begins, and I think Brighton really embraces doing something different and joining in.
What I love about the festival is that it heralds for me the start of the summer. It's the start of the year. It's Brighton waking up after a long cold winter and enjoying itself.
I think the other really interesting thing about the festival is that we have a guest director, and so each year the festival does respond very much to that in the programme, and you get a sense of a person and their own interests and personality and human interests, and I think that keeps it really, really fresh for us as programmers, but also hopefully for audience as well.
What makes the festival so special is, in many respects, Brighton. In many respects, it's the audience. We've got such a receptive audience. We happen to know that a huge number of our audience have said that they enjoy the shows in the festival because they want to take a risk, they want to try something new. And that's what we want to be able to provide.
For me personally, Brighton Festival is an amazing adventure. I grew up in classical music, and that's the area that I know most about and love the most. But through 5 festivals, I have learnt more about the arts than I ever thought possible. And having my own mind expanded has been a real thrill. So exploring a programme, putting together a programme, and then seeing it come to life is an extraordinary privilege. And I believe I take that journey with an audience every year, and it's fantastic to get to this year, Sunday the 26th of May, and look back across 3 weeks of some 150 events, and feel that you've learnt something, that you've changed in some way, and that you've also stored up a whole range of memories that will be with you forever.